And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Connected for Real podcast. I am Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and today with me is Brenda, and I love the name of her business. So, Brenda, introduce yourself and tell us what the name is.
All right. Thank you. My name is Brenda Hewlko, and I'm in Canada, the central part of Canada. And the name of my business is Women at Pause, Pause. I deal with women usually starting at perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, late 40s, and beyond. And we get really clear on who we are at midlife, what we need, what we want. Many of us are looking for a new passion. And most importantly, I create community because community is extremely important, particularly at this age and stage in life. And my motto of my program is "Women grow through connection."
Oh, yes. And my business is Connected for Real. So, we are definitely on the same path here. I love it. I love it. So tell me more about this age group, because today we're talking about, midlife and marriage and how they sort of affect each other. What do you see starts to happen suddenly when women turn into their 40s and start to find themselves again? Because, there is a big shift when you're in the beginning of those like little kid stages, or the things like figuring yourself out, and then suddenly you're like, ooh, I'm in a new stage, what do I do now? So what do you have?
Right. That's a great question because, first of all, I want to share with you is the reason I started this program was because I really floundered. I felt really stuck. And it started to happen in my late 40s, and I didn't know what was happening. And to be very honest, I was really confused. And I also was almost embarrassed about how I felt because, number one, I had a really good life. Okay. I had a really good husband, a good marriage. My kids were doing fine. I mean, yes, we have problems, absolutely. Um, and we had some big challenges in our life, like most people do, but I couldn't understand what was going on with me. And when I finally figured out, and it took a long time, to be quite honest, I remember waking up one morning. First of all, I'm going to tell you how I felt. The feeling inside was a flat feeling.
Hmm.
I had always worked as a mom, but I always put my family first. So I worked my business all around it. I've been self employed probably since the age of 25, 26. And I remember that I had actually been in a business at that time for about 33 years. And it really fulfilled me. I loved it. I did very well. And then something was starting to change. And what really fulfilled me no longer was. And I couldn't figure
Mm.
out why. And we're probably the same. We read every book. I remember even hiring a therapist. And you have to remember, 13 years ago, most women didn't talk about going to a therapist, right? And
Right.
actually, it was more than 13 years ago. It was probably 15 or 16 years ago. And I found this therapist who helped women get unstuck in their career. And I learned a lot about myself there. And I remember after working with her, getting some stuff cleared out, I woke up in the spring and I was still feeling this flat feeling. I wasn't depressed. I even remember going to my doctor and saying, I don't know, am I depressed? And she looked at me in my eyes and she goes, no, you're not depressed. And I said, well, and I remember going through a very short depression actually shortly after I got married. And it wasn't the same as this, right? And I will never forget one morning I woke up. It was in the late spring, and I was getting dressed, and I had that feeling again when I got out of bed. Like just, ugh. And I couldn't describe it. And I just remember buttoning up my blouse, looking out the window, And I remember I was wearing this leopard skin blouse. I wish I would have kept it because it's back in style. And I had that feeling again. And I said to God, I said, God, if you help me get out of this, find a way out of this, I will do whatever I can to help other women do this. I don't think I even said the word women, but maybe people. Now, did some miracle fall down from the sky and, pull me out of this right away? No, it didn't. It still took me a while. And later that summer, I picked up a book, like I always do. I used to read those Chicken Soup for the Soul books in the summer because, they were short. And when I was with the kids at the cottage, you could just read one chapter and pick it up.
Right.
And I read this chapter about a woman who helped people all through the world find passion in their life. And she actually had a career. She would stand on stage with famous people and share her message, like with the Dalai Lama and with Jack Canfield and all these big thought leaders at the time. And I don't know what it was, but I thought, who is this person? And she had written a bestseller. I went down to my office in the basement in my computer and I Googled it and I phoned the bookstore and I said, do you have this book in stock called The Passion Test? And they said, yes. And I said, put it under your counter. I'm coming to get it right now. And I did. It was in August. And I drove to the store, picked up another book. And when I started to read it, it just clicked. I no longer had passion for what I was doing in my life.
Whoa.
And it was big. I didn't even have the word for it, right? And so I took the course. I was coached. And during the third coaching session in this course, I had a private coach. All I can say is I had a download. And that at that moment when I got really clear about what was really important to me and what I'd loved doing in my life, this download came over me. And I remember I had a tablet or notebook right next to me, and I picked it up and I wrote, coaching women at midlife. And then I wrote the word transitions, ... I had no idea what that meant. And that actually was the start of what I'm doing today. And I just want to tell you another little story is I remember I was always tired. And honestly, and that moment, I felt like someone injected jet fuel into my veins. And I remember my neighbor was moving that next day. And I was really grieving about her move because she was a really close friend. She was like my kid's second mom, like if the kids got locked out or you were in a pinch, that's where you went. That's who you called and vice versa. And I was so sorry she was moving. She was only moving across town. Like it wasn't like she was moving to the other part of the country, right? But anyway, and I remember I was so excited. I ran into her home and she, her house was empty. She's doing the blast cleaning. And I said, Karen, I said, I found another new business. And she said, oh, that's nice. And I said, I'm going to help women find passion in their life. That's what's been wrong with me. And she was very successful in the psychological field. Okay, like she had her niche, and and I was just waiting for her to be so happy for me. And she said, "Well, Brenda, that's nice. There's always room for things like that in the world." And I thought, "That's it, really?" But I mean, I'm just like so excited, right? And then I learned a lesson, and that was I needed to be very careful who I shared this with, right? And so I started to share what I was going to do next with some trusted people, some friends. And I would say, how people are when they ask you, what's new? And I'd say, well, I'm going to start something new. I'm going to help women find passion in their life. And they would look at me and they would say, what? When are you starting? I said, I don't know. I think I need to get trained. And I would say, why? And they said, can I be your first client? And I'd say, you? And this kept happening. And I remember I went to Safeway, which is our major grocery store in our neighborhood. And I saw a client from my previous business, that was still my business, really, in the parking lot. And we hadn't seen each other for a while. And, how are you? And I said, oh, I'm great. I'm starting a new business. And I'm going to help women find passion in their life. And she started to cry. And I remember I said, oh my God, Cheryl, what is wrong? And she says, Brenda, I'm so afraid. I'm retiring next year and I haven't a clue what I'm going to do. And I am so scared. Can I come work with you? And this kept happening every day. And I remember coming home one day, closing the door, walking upstairs, and my husband was home. And I said, I don't know what the heck's going on out there, but I have stumbled on something and nobody is talking about it. And they
Right.
were all women in their late 40s and above. And that
Wow.
truly was how Women at Pause was formed.
I love this in so many ways. First of all, I totally relate to your friend moving because my friend from across the street moved 2 blocks down, okay?
But it feels like a country.
It is not the same. You can't go across 2 blocks just to get milk, right? It's like, oh, why'd you go? So I totally get you.
I know.
And then the other thing I really love that you were saying is all about the download and how the process of getting that download. We think that the second I click, everything will just flow and I'll be on my way and everything will be great. No, sometimes it's about taking, one step and then looking for the next little crumb that God puts for us, right? Because he knows what the road is. He's guiding us and he's just showing us like, okay, now take this step, now the next step, now the next step. And you're following these little crumbs until you finally get some like big chunk and you're like, okay, something's going, right? I'm on the right track. I love it. I love the way you described it. And by the way, it's very similar to my story when I finally stood in prayer and said, God, show me what you want because I have no idea. That's when 3 people on one day, came and asked me for advice. It was like, this is what you need to be doing. So it's exactly how God works, right? He shows you the path. He throws you the little crumbs. You start following and you trust. And then it just starts coming and you get more and more in tune to what it's trying to tell you and what God is pushing you towards and what is actually your purpose. So I am so into your story. Tell me more.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about marriage and I'm a lot older than you. Okay. I'm 64 and I'm proud to be 64. A lot of women won't like to mention their age, but I'm very proud to be 64. And one of the things that I noticed where you are at, when we were in our early 40s, late 30s, many of our friends were separating and divorcing. It was like scary. Like, my husband would come home because he was the one that was working outside the home, or I'd come home from the skating rink or wherever I'd been with my kids, and I'd say, oh my God, guess what I heard? So-and-so is, are separating. And it was a frightening time. And actually, I remember this good friend of ours. Like, there was a pretty prominent person in the small city that we live in had left, and we were saying, what? And he was very busy. Like, we all are busy. When you've got 7 children, I mean, I can't imagine. But we just laughed one day because she said to me, Brenda, where do people find the time to have affairs? And it was the truth. I thought, where do they find the time to have affairs, right? But, I had a mentor. I was really blessed. I had a mentor that was put in front of my path. Could not have thought of this, planned it, never had been really mentored in this way before. And one of the things that he told me is, Brenda, he said, every 10 years, there can be a real struggle in marriage. And I thought about that for a long time. And we've been married for 41 years. I honestly feel like I've won the lottery in marriage. I really do. Um, but there's a part of me that thinks I almost wish that we were obligated to take a refresher marriage therapy counseling course every 10 years. Like, we got married in the Catholic Church. I was brought up as a Ukrainian Catholic. My husband was Protestant, and our priest said, "Well, if you want to get married in my church, then he's got to come to marriage classes," right? And so we went, I had to pull him to these marriage classes, right? But they were really great. Like, they were really great. And I think we all need some help every now and then, however that might come. Um, and unfortunately, by the time of midlife, which is, 50 and above, 60% of marriages fail. And one of the things that I find interesting that I heard by someone who is a lawyer, is an accountant, and now coaches people going through divorce. He was a divorce lawyer. I was listening to him. I came across him on a podcast. He was amazing. And he said that most people, after they divorce, about 10 years later, really regret it. And I thought, whoa. And I was having this conversation with one of my girlfriends who had also divorced. And it was about that 10-year period. And I told her this, and she said, "Brenda, I agree with that 100%. I wish I would have never divorced the first time." And so I think we really need to spend a lot more time on finding out what's not working and working on how to make it work. And I think it all starts with communication, right?
Oh, I love that. I love what you're saying. I'll tell you why. There's something so, so big that you said. You won the lottery, you have an amazing husband, and yet you still wish that there were tools out there for you and, refresher courses and things that filled you up, because that's what marriage is all about. It's about the work. It's about putting in and getting out and really enjoying the journey. And I feel like the biggest ticking bomb is those okay, mediocre divorces. It's good enough not to get divorced, but it's not good enough to be counted as a good marriage, right? So you're like in that in-between state. So it's not bad enough that you're going to go do something about it, ask for help, or get yourself some, I don't know what, counseling, whatever it is. It's not that bad, but it's also not good enough that you're not feeling it. Like, something has to give. And you live in that like low grade pain for so long that eventually it wears you down. And that's really bad. So I talk a lot about no more mediocre marriages, because I think that's the bigger problem, bigger than the divorce rate. Because the divorce rate, so you know where you're standing, you know what's going on, you know to get help, you know that you need to, whatever, turn it around. And I personally believe that you can turn any situation around, because that's what God is all about, right? Like, you can come back from anywhere. It doesn't matter how far you've gone. You can even single-handedly change your entire marriage by changing yourself. So that's great. And then on the other hand, what's going on with all the amazing marriages, right? Because I'm also a lottery winner, right? I am a super duper lottery winner. I love my husband. I got the best. I look back to see, like, I was in that world of matchmaking, and everybody was trying to match me up with the best guy because I was, a pretty good girl, and everybody saw potential in me. They're like, "Oh, she needs somebody big," and I knew it too. So I was saying, I want the biggest, the biggest, best, whatever. And I didn't even realize how amazing my husband is until, like, every time it just keeps getting better. And people are saying, "Oh, my marriage is good. I don't have to go to your retreat." And I'm like, that's why you have to go to my retreat, because I'm actually talking to the good marriages. I'm not talking to the ones who are, so off the edge that like you're 1 foot out the door, that those are not my people. My people are the ones who are having an amazing marriage, whose husband is amazing, and they just want more. They want better, you know, they don't want to be like stuck in that, afraid of like, okay, if I do anything, it might change. Like, no, get it to the next level, break through.
I love that. I love that. Do you know, here's something, here's a commonality of women that come into my groups. I created a signature program after I got my passion. And it's a 12-week program called Women at Pause. And then I have an alumni. And one of the things that I find is that women often can think that the men, their husbands, need to make them happy, or
Yeah.
their job needs to make them happy, right? But let's stick with the marriage part, okay? And I want to tell you that before I became a coach, my marriage was probably a 7 out of 10. Okay. Some days were probably a 4, some days were 9, but say 7. It was a great marriage. No, I'm going to say it was a good marriage. Okay. It was a good marriage. And then when I started doing all this work on myself and got to know who I was, but most importantly, got to really appreciate who I was, I became so happy with me. Like I stepped into joy that I had never experienced to that height in my life before. And that's my goal with the women that come and work with me. And I always say, the minute you feel this joy in you, you'll know, like you will know it. It feels very different. You let me know because that's like hallelujah time for me, right? One more woman found joy, right? But the thing is, I'll never forget, I had a really close friend that we went to coaching school together, right? And we kept in touch with each other often after we graduated. And we live in different countries, and we spent a lot of time on the phone. And one day she said to me, Brenda, she goes, how's your marriage? And I said to her, Stacy, most days now it's an 11 out of 10. And she said, so is mine. Right? And here's the thing. My husband didn't even know what the heck I was doing. Right? I mean, that book I read that I think changed my life. I said, I just really want you to read this. And I remember him reading it. And I could tell I'm looking at him, as I'm walking by the couch that he was sitting at. He wasn't too interested, right? Like he did not have a clue what I was really going through inside. But that was how my marriage changed. It started with me. It started with
Yes.
me. And
Yes. It's
I heard somebody.
It's magnetizing.
Exactly.
It is so amazing. And I totally feel you, right? And isn't it amazing that you can have friends who you say 11 out of 10 and they're excited because they're also there, and everybody is getting this like new norm, because the norm has become so low. Like if you're still married, that's called a good marriage, right? Like we're in a place where we don't even appreciate the ability to get to that 11 because it's so out of reach, or out of our, I don't know, it's just not there. You don't hear about it, you don't see it, you don't even wonder how to get there. You're like, I'm just good surviving here, making sure things are not shaky. Why live like that?
Exactly. You have a choice. Our purpose in life is to be living in joy and fulfillment, not misery and suffering. And I think it's because we are human beings, it's not natural to think that we can be living in joy and happiness 24/7. We wouldn't be human. We probably wouldn't be mentally healthy if that happened. We are going to have tough times. We are going to have tough times in our marriage. But, I think I've been thinking about, what am I going to tell you about my marriage, since we spoke. And one of the things that I said to my husband, he laughed. One of the things, we have a lot of humor in our life, and in our marriage. And he said to me, I said, hey, I'm going to be in this podcast, and I'm talking about marriage, successful marriage, what it takes. And he says, well, do you think you're qualified? And I said, why would you ask that? Is 41 years not enough? And he said, well, don't you have to have like 2 or 3 marriages to figure out what's successful? And I said, heck no. But the thing is, my 2 words or 3 words is just be kind. Just be kind to one another. And that can mean many things. I
want
think
to add,
most of all, it means being respectful.
yes, I want to add, just be kind to yourself. That's where it starts. Like
Yes,
you were
yes.
saying, first you have to accept you. A lot of times I realize that the problem is not my husband, is what is going on in my head that he's thinking or
Yes.
that he's believing, right? Like you said, you gave your husband the book. I was trying for years to show him what was helping me so he can come along. Like, oh, don't you see the light? Come with me. And I was dragging him, and it was exhausting because here I was trying so hard because I had this belief in my head that the more I grow and he just stays behind, that's going to create that, gap, and we're eventually going to outgrow each other. And I don't want that. So I was constantly trying to feed him all this like coachy stuff and trying to drag him along and come on, grow with me. It was making so much of a mess. And it was just all about just be kind to yourself. Get out of the noise, get out of the loops, get out of all that junk and just live. And you were saying before, like you become so magnetizing because like a magnet just, attracts everything to it. When you're happy and you're in that like state of joy and you found your purpose and you're doing your thing, everything just comes along and it just becomes so easy. Like my husband has now come along without me doing anything. And that's because I finally let go and stopped trying to fix him.
Yes, exactly. Fixing people does not work. I don't know. I don't know if you know a woman by the name of Byron Katie. She's
Yes,
very famous. Okay, so you know her
love
work, right?
her.
I know. And so I took some training with her, and the thing that always sticks out is that there's 3 businesses, right? There's 3 businesses. There's my business, there's your business, and there's God's business. Whose business are you in? And when we try and fix someone, we're not in our own business. And it takes a lot just to keep our own front steps clean without having to go into someone else. And as you said before, I totally agree with you, is that it takes so much energy away from you to try and fix someone else, or not even the word fix, but even staying in your head, like, because
I'll
once
help
you're
you with the wording. It's called help and empower someone else, right? You're like, you make it sound really good. You really want the best for them. You're trying to get them out of their, suffering and their, stucknessisms and all these things. It's really, really comes from a good place. But when you stop and you get really clear on this is not my business, I am not in charge of his happiness. I'm not in charge of fixing whatever is going on in his life. If anything, I'm not showing up for myself and for my people when I'm doing that, like you're saying. And this is something that I speak about a lot because I love Byron Katie. I love that she says that. And I love that she brings God into it because there are things that are not in our control. And when you bring God into it, you solve 100% of the issues just by doing that.
Yeah. I'm going to give you one more tip. I'll probably give you a few if we have time, but I thought of this. I think it's really important for couples to go away alone, even for one night, and do it often. And when I suggest it, particularly to those that are in their 40s and maybe disposable income isn't there, we can't afford to go into a nice hotel or a B&B or a resort for a night or two. And I always think you can't afford not to. Take $20, $30 out of each paycheck and hide it in a getaway account, right? I think it's really critical that you go away without your children, without friends, and just the two of you. All you need is one night. And it's that time together without distractions. It's critical. You will always come back refreshed. Anytime we do it, and we're empty nesters. We've been empty nesters for a long time. It's still a big treat to leave, right?
Yeah.
And whenever we come home, it could be a weekend, to the next city. It doesn't have to be far. Could be to a B&B, like 5 miles out of town. It's just like whenever we come home, we always say, we got to do this more often. And we plan the next one. It's refreshing. It's just refreshing to have uninterrupted time alone.
Yes. And I want to add to that. You're talking about the lack of money and funds. I have friends who haven't gone away ever because of their kids, right? You have kids. I'm in
Mhm.
a community where, you know, we are not we are not so far from average. Like the average here is 8, okay? And that's the average. There's there are
Wow.
families here who have many, many children. And there's the younger ones that are growing into it and they have 2, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. And you say, what am I going to do with my kids? How am I going to go away? They feel so selfish for even thinking that they should go away that they never do. And I I cannot tell you how important it is. I helped a friend of mine. She told me they never go away, they never went away, they never nothing. When it came to their 15th anniversary, I said, I will take some of your kids. Just go. And so I took the girls and a different friend took the boys and they went for like, I don't know, maybe it was 3 days, 2 nights, something like that, to the Dead Sea. It was such a life changer. And the kids had a good
Yes.
time. We had a good time. Sometimes you think it's not possible. Change that to how can that be possible? Ask
Yes.
God to just show you how can this be possible? Allow the creative thinking to start flowing because everything is possible. I know people who hire a grandma, somebody who is an empty nester to come and live with the kids for a couple of days. That's a totally like that's a thing you can actually hire. Did you know that? Isn't that amazing?
No, that's great.
Yes. You can pay someone to come and babysit your kids and it is so cute. You can, ask the neighbors, you can ask your friends, you can put every kid with his best friend to sleep over for a night. Nothing bad is going to happen. You know, you are so caught up in this, it's never going to happen, that you don't even think of how to make it happen. And that is something that is really big. You said start saving money, and I'm saying just ask. Just ask God to show you how this is possible. I'll give you another example. When we had the baby 6 months ago, I really had this feeling like I want to go get out. I just need that quiet because, you know, I had a home birth, so I never really went away. I had the baby in my living room. I went into my bed and I pretty much stayed there for the next month and everybody just brought me food to my bed. It was a great, great time.
Wow.
I wish I could do it again because it was just that good. The birth was good, the kids were good, not leaving the house was great. The whole COVID thing was completely over my head because nobody had to check me and nobody had to bother me. It was the best birth ever. I really enjoyed it. And eventually I was like, okay, but I really need that like being alone, that like get out of real life situation. So I gave my husband a uh, a challenge. Figure out how we can get away. And he's like, what do you mean? We can't even go to the hotels because we don't have a green pass because, with COVID, you had to have a green pass and the baby doesn't have a green pass and da, da, da. Okay, fine. So we had all these things come up and I was like, I don't care how. You figure it out. You're a creative guy. You have friends. Ask your friends. Ask your mentors. Ask whoever. I don't know. But I just let it be. Like I allowed it to come in, right?
Yes.
Suddenly we get this message from, one of his close friends and mentors. And he said, actually, we have an apartment that, we lend out sometimes. You can have it for one night. And it was like, really? That was amazing. Now we had just had a baby. It was maybe like 3 weeks in. So we had this little tiny baby. We took with us like a little bassinet and all the food and just packed up and went to like this empty apartment, and it was the best thing. We went for a walk by the beach. We made our own food. We sat there and ate with candlelight, just things that
Yeah.
you never do. And, the baby was there fine. So I picked him up, I nursed, I changed, he went to sleep, whatever. But it was such a nice pause. And I love that you have
Yes.
pause in the name of your business, because it's such a big deal to just
Mm-hmm.
pause,
It
right?
is. It is. It is. And oh, I love what you've just said. And one of the principles I teach is that we often, and I was there too. Well, I don't know how to do that. We don't need to know the how. We just need to know the what. If we get really clear on what it is we want and need, the how will always show up if we're on the right path. Like I remember when I started this business, I was in a sales organization. Everything was done for me. Everything. I just had to show up and do the work. And that was pretty darn freeing, I realized, until I started my own, right? And I didn't know anything about technology really. And I remember, in that previous business, everything I did felt like I was paddling down the river against the stream. It was so hard. But when I got really clear about what my purpose was and when I truly aligned with it, it was like every time I came across an obstacle, oh, I don't know how to do that, something would always show up. And it was usually someone that I would be talking with. They'd ask me, how's it going? I'd say, oh, it's great. And they would, or sometimes they'd say, do you need some help with anything? And I'd say, yeah, I need help with this. And they said, oh, I can help you with that. Go and talk to so and so, or I'll do that for you. And I'm just like, how can this be so easy? And it was like I was like, then from going against, paddling against the current, I was on a life raft down the river, and everyone was on the banks, and I was just like, they were just there to help me. And that's how you know that you're on the right path, right? The
Yes.
struggle is gone. And
Yes.
oh, yeah, it's,
Yes, that's what
forget about,
I call that being in flow. And by the way, my signature
yes,
program is called the Flow Mastermind, because the flow stands for finding God in everything, loving your marriage, optimizing your business, and welcoming your whole you. Because that is what it's all about. It's those 4 pillars that have to really work in order for you to be in that flow state. The
yeah,
God, marriage, the business, and you have to have all of those. You can't ignore one and think it's going to be okay.
exactly. Absolutely. I just want to share one piece with you that really, you were talking about marriages, that why should we just be in a marriage that's just fine instead of being it great, right? But how do you get there? Because that's often the challenge. How do women talk if a woman is feeling that way with a husband or vice versa? How do you get there? And I will never forget this conversation I had with my mentor. And he said to me, he said, you know what, Brenda, I've had 10 marriages. And I'm like, what? No, he said, I'm in my 10th marriage. And I'm like, you're in your 10th marriage? And he said, yeah, but to the same woman. He said, we can have many marriages, but to the same person, to the same partner. It saves a lot of collateral damage. And I just laughed. And he said, when our marriage needs some work, we treat it almost like a board meeting. We need to have a meeting here. We need to sit down and talk about what's not working in this marriage. And we do. And we come to an agreement that satisfies both parties. We wrap up that old marriage in a box, we put a big, beautiful ribbon on it, put it on the shelf, and we start a new one right there and then. And I just thought that's just the most fascinating thing, right?
That's
And
beautiful.
what it is, and what he's really saying is we just need to share, how we're feeling, where we need support, right? particularly if you're a very independent woman, right? Where do you need help? What do you need? Most women at midlife haven't a clue what they need. That's why they come to me.
Exactly. That's
Right?
day one. Day one of my retreat, by the way, starting tomorrow, is connect to yourself. That is so huge because we do not have a clue. So you come to him being like, well, you don't satisfy any of my needs and any of my wants. And it's like, okay, so what do you need? I have no idea. That's the problem. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know what I want. You should know.
Yeah.
It's like he should know. Really? Right? That's exactly what it's like. No, he shouldn't know. How is he supposed to know? It's just absolutely amazing.
Yes, we're breaking up here.
Oh. You are frozen. I'm not frozen. Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah, you're just freezing.
Okay, cool. Tell us how people. Okay, tell us how people can find you.
They can find me at womenatpause.com, and they can also come into a free private community, and it's called the Wise Women Cafe. And I just want to share this process that I was telling you about that I went through to find new passion. I'm actually doing a standalone workshop on it, and it's a retreat, a passion retreat, and finding your passion, and it's on a weekend. It's 3.5 hours spread out throughout the entire weekend. Okay, so you've got time in between to sit and think, to pause. You've got time to do some, inner work, and we come back. It's Friday night, Saturday for 90 minutes. Friday night it's an hour and a half on Saturday, and an hour on Sunday. And my main work is my 12-week program, and we have a new one starting at the beginning of February. And they just need to contact me if someone would like to chat with me. I'm more than happy to chat with them and see how I can help them. And yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it. So is it womenatpause.com? Is that the website?
That's right. Women at pause, pause.com.
I love that. And I mentioned my retreats. I'm just going to put up the link for you guys. It's connectedforreal.com/retreat. And it starts tomorrow, January 17th. If you're listening to this after, you are welcome to go to that link and you will find the replays, connectedforreal.com/retreat for the marriage breakthrough retreat. And that's exactly what we asked. You were asking before, how do women break through to the next level? And we actually go through the steps. And women have said over 350 women went through this retreat. And the feedback is just absolutely mind-blowing. One lady said that she went from, okay, yeah, I'm probably going to get divorced when the kids grow up, to I said that? I can't believe I said that. Oh, my marriage is great, right? And then when we spoke, it was like, oh, that's why. It was from the marriage breakthrough retreat. So it was the first one in February, and ever since then, she's just been completely changing her life. So, and that's not just one lady. I just keep hearing it. Women are taking responsibility for their life. They're taking responsibility for their marriage. And really, that's what it's all about. So I highly recommend it, especially when you have a good marriage. ConnectedForReal.com/retreat.
You're doing such important work, so valuable. And I just encourage everyone that's listening to go. And I remember one of the women that came into my first group, she gave me a testimonial, and she said, it's especially for women who think they don't need it.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. One of my friends shared it on her, on her group on WhatsApp, and her friend wrote to her, "I don't need it. My marriage is fine." And, she said to me, "What do I tell her?" I said, "Well, I'm happy you're happy because I'm sure that, you have nothing else to learn." It's like,
Yeah.
it really is. It's for those women who are at an 11 and want to get to like a 20, right? Because we're extraordinary like that and we want to do everything amazing. We want our marriage to catch up, right? Like everything should be amazing, not just our business, not just our passion, not just, our purpose. Our marriage is has to grow together with us.
Exactly. And if we are investing in ourselves, which is a must, we are always growing and evolving. And that means there's always something like, oh, you know what, I really could need some help with that. And you just don't know what you don't know, right? And it just changes everything. One thought can change everything. Um, and I just want to leave by saying, what you put your attention on grows stronger in your life. And if you don't feel your marriage is where you want it to be, start pretending that it is. What can you do? What you put your attention on grows stronger. And if you're thinking crummy thoughts about your marriage, it's going to grow that way. So find the good things and concentrate on that.
Right. I love that. I love that. I a while ago I went to a marriage class. I was pregnant with my sixth or my fifth, whatever. It was a while ago. And I was talking to my mother on the way up the hill. And I said to her, "I'm going to a marriage class. I'm really excited." And she says, "You? Why do you need that? You have such a great marriage." I said, "That's exactly why, because I keep going to these things, right?" Because you have to be so invested in something to keep growing. Like, do you stop going to business coaching when you have a business just because your business is growing? No, you keep wanting to make it better. What's different with your marriage?
Yes.
Your marriage is the core of your entire life. It spills over to everything you do. So it's just makes sense that you would go and, investigate and find and drink up everything there is to learn. I love that you
You
said
are
that.
so
And I
wise. You are so wise for your age. You really are.
thank you. I have to tell you this. I was going to say goodbye, but this is so cute that you said that. In the beginning when I posted that this is what I'm doing on the local group, or not local, but like just Israel. I wasn't going far yet. And I said, "This is what I'm doing. I'll help you with your marriage." And this one lady says, "I could be your grandmother. How will you help me?" And I was like, "Listen, I I don't think I can ever bridge the gap between our ages, right? So I can grow older, but you're going to be even older then. So what's the difference? You can hire me now or you can hire me then." I feel like God put me in this very young body, and it was very hard for me because I was this wise even when I was a teenager. And one of the biggest things I had to get over was being okay with being wise, being okay with,
Mm.
having some answers, being okay with knowing that I can help someone. And we were doing some work in the coaching program I'm in, and she said something about, what is it that you're fighting against, right? You're saying about going downstream. What is it that you're still fighting against? And what came up for me was that I'm too high level. And people who come and they want me, they're like, "You shouldn't be high level. This doesn't make any sense." So they're trying to like bring me down to their reality. And for a long time, I was trying to just adjust myself because that's what you do, right? Growing up, you want to fit in. So I was always trying to be normal like everyone else until I finally broke out of it. And I was like, "Guys, I can't change myself. This is what you get. You get high level. I can't do anything low level. I don't know how to water myself down. I can't anymore." And that's
Mhm.
when I started, allowing it all to all come out. And so I really appreciate that you said that because it's so nice. It makes it feel really aligned with
It's
my
your
journey.
gift. It's your gift, and that's why you have it. It's inside, and that's how you need to show up in the world. And I'm so grateful that you are, and what you're doing, and it is such valuable work, and it's just been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure that we connected. One of my theme this year is to show up, and I two words: show up, show up, show up. And I'm showing up in different areas of my life. And and maybe that's what I'd like to leave with is, how are you going to show up? How can you show up today in your marriage?
I love that. I love that. Thank you, everyone who commented. By the way, I didn't address your comments, but they were really wonderful. We got some sweet amazings and things like that. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Brenda. You have been amazing. There's just I feel like we're on a similar path, aligned. We're working with similar women. We want you, the listener, we want you to live your best life, to be in touch with your purpose. We want you to live, right? That's what this life is all about, is live from a place of abundance, from a place of good and joy, and not from a place of, okay, I guess this is what God wants for me to suffer. No, God does not want you to suffer. God wants you to love and live and breathe and give and just be. And I appreciate you coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone.